in women's rowing, like it's different every year, and the
Yeah.
competition level is especially at the D1 level, and that requires athletes to, if they want to compete, if they want to be in one of those NCAA boats, it requires them to have a level of commitment that is, pretty significant to their weekly
Yeah.
schedule. So I'm curious for you, like from a high school rower standpoint,
Mhm.
who aspires to row at the college level, whether
Mhm.
it's D3, D1, you have experience rowing for a club program, like in whatever way that is, like what questions should those athletes be asking themselves as they are sitting as a sophomore, junior, senior, whatever in high school? What questions should those athletes be asking themselves as they start navigating the process of figuring out, I have, 100+ schools to choose from. Like, where do I even begin? And from a competitiveness standpoint, like what questions should those athletes ask themselves?
Yeah. That's a really good question. The first one that comes to my mind is how much do you want rowing to consume your life? Right? How much do you want to give of yourself to the sport and not always receive the same amount back? I think that's the biggest thing that can be a really hard transition for, there's however many junior programs in the country. And then you also take in international athletes. So we're talking about all the juniors athletes in the world, right? And there are only so many NCAA Division I teams. So how much do you want rowing to consume your daily life? And what does that sort of consumption look like, right? Is it something where every spare, not, I shouldn't say every spare minute, but the spare minutes that you have, do you want that to go into rowing in some sense of the word? Or do you want that to be more focused on your social life? Or do you want that to be more focused on academics? Now, there's always outliers, right? Like there are the really high academic schools that are also really high performing in rowing. We aspire to be one of those. We have the high academics, and I think we have all of the ingredients to be pushing into the top 10. We're not there yet, but that is definitely a place that we want to be at BU. But I would use, some of the Ivies as an example, right? Princeton's been crazy fast for a long time. Brown's been fat, right? They all have their speed, and they're also really high performing academic schools. And so as a junior athlete, thinking about sort of your consumption level on a day-to-day basis, not as like, oh, this is what I want to get out of 4 years, but really thinking about like, what do my days look like, and how do I want to be spending my days? And if your gut, right, tells you that I don't want rowing to consume my everyday, then you should probably look D2 or D3, because you're still going to row with really fast people. You're still going to have an awesome team environment. You're still going to be held at a high standard. But because of the way D3 specifically, I don't have experience in D2, but because of how D3 is specifically set up, it is set up to provide that balance for you because of the NCAA rules around it, right? Those rules have changed a little bit since I've coached at D3. They're now counting days rather than weeks. So it's changed a little bit, but still for the most part, it limits your consumption of rowing and how much you spend in it for you, right? At the D1 level, the best way I describe it to recruits is like, think about your parents working a 40-hour work week, right? 9 to 5 situation. We, as a D1 athlete, have you for 20 hours of that week, which means the other 20 hours are spent in class, most likely. And that's your 40-hour week. And then on top of that, you also have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to socialize, you have to do things that provide you fun, right? And enjoyment. And so when they sort of think about it like that, it hopefully provides a light bulb of like, oh, I don't want that much consumption of rowing in my life because that's just too much and I don't want to walk that line. Or then there are some athletes that are like, yes, can I make it 50 hours a week? Right? So it just depends on the individual. And And I think asking yourself, like, what do I want my days to look like? What do I want my time to look like? And how much pressure am I okay putting on myself? And then also how much pressure am I okay taking from coaches, from professors, from your other teammates as well?